Welcome to another episode of the Clarity Digital Podcast, where we explore the latest in marketing and digital transformation. In this episode, I had the pleasure of interviewing social media expert Akvile DeFazio, who shared insights on modern advertising strategies, trending tactics, and AI tools. Stay tuned for actionable tips and valuable takeaways. Let's dive in.
Hi, how are you?
Doing well, thanks, Al. How are you?
Good. Thank you for coming to our podcast. I think we met at Advanced Search in Napa, and I saw you had a very informative session on, at the time, Facebook advertising strategies. So that's why I invited you to this show. If you don't mind introducing yourself for our audience, that would be wonderful.
Sure, yeah. Thank you for having me. So as you so kindly introduced me, I'm Akvile DeFazio, president of Akvile. We're a social media advertising agency based in the Los Angeles area. We recently celebrated 10 years of business, but I've been working in paid media for 17. And we focus on all social media channels for ads, so everything from Meta to TikTok, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Quora, Reddit, you name it. We have clients working in all of those. And we primarily work with e-commerce brands, travel, apps, consumer lead generation, and sometimes entertainment industry clients.
Are you segmenting your social media advertising strategy by channels, or is it per like industry, or is it pretty much like you use all channels to maximize exposure?
Great question. So it depends on the client and their goals. We usually do meta ads for all clients just because it's been around the longest. It has the most advanced targeting and optimization settings. It has the largest audience sizes to begin with, and it's still relatively expensive compared to some other channels. So it depends on that. And then if there's excess budget, then we think about strategically what other channels we want to expand into, because if something happens to Meta, we don't want to just have all of our eggs in one basket. So if it's a client that's doing lead generation, whether we don't really work with a lot of B2B brands, but for some of our lead gen clients where it's consumer products, say it's like a solar or home windows, something a little more customized, then we might do LinkedIn if it makes sense for the budget and for the targeting. But if it's something else where we're trying to just promote content, we'll do something like Pinterest. It's low cost, but it really depends on what the client is offering and what the goals are. And then how do we maximize the results with the budget that we have available?
Yeah, that's great. So you mentioned Meta ads is your main channel, and by Meta ads, we are talking about Facebook and Instagram, right? Is it
Yes.
pretty much that's combined? So like, why should brands consider running Meta ads? Is it because of the points you mentioned, advanced targeting and cheaper, or is there more to it?
It's mostly that. It has the most capabilities to accomplish your goals, and it does a really great job in doing so. I think just because their algorithm's more advanced, they have a lot of AI features built in now where I like to have a little bit more manual control. Historically, we segmented things a lot more, and a lot of us that work in my space pride ourselves in audience targeting and figuring out different ways to reach people effectively. But their platform has done an exceptional job in the last year and a half to improve their targeting capabilities. And it's more hands off that now. And my job has shifted more toward creative strategy. So making sure that the visuals and the ad copy and the videos that we develop for clients really translate over to their website or their app and accomplish the goals that they have set forth.
Creative strategy. So creative on Meta ads, but also probably landing pages as well, right?
Yes. I don't do design or like CRO work or landing pages, but my job doesn't end when somebody clicks off of an ad, because that ties back into, did we get the sale? Did we get the sign up? Whatever that goal is. So I do make recommendations to clients of, hey, we don't have this type of landing page. Let's set this up. So I'll write all of those recommendations and the copy for the landing page and just work together with the teams that are responsible for those to just have that feedback using their specialty and then mine, and seeing like, how do we get more results holistically? And then what kind of things do we learn on this channel that we could apply to other maybe paid search, since I don't work in that space anymore. So it is a collaborative effort, but yeah, oftentimes I do dip into the landing page because it's an extension of my job.
Sure. And talking about conversions and whatever the KPIs are, how do you define those KPIs? And And do you have different KPIs for different campaigns, or is it pretty much the same KPI for each client?
Different KPIs for clients. For e-commerce, we focus on purchases. Historically, it was more funnel specific. So we'd guide people through the funnel, where we don't have to do that as much these days, just because the AI targeting has changed and improved a lot. Consumer behavior has also changed a lot, where we don't have to really get in front of people as much. They're clicking and they're buying. So for those ones, we do look at add to cart. We do look at how far they make it through the cart. If they bounce, then we adjust those things to make people progress further. But the ultimate KPI for an e-commerce brand is purchases. Then we look at how much do we pay per purchase on average? What's the return on ad spend? And look at those different metrics to see how do we sell more of this and get more sales volume, but also how do we increase profitability? So that's where it comes to testing landing pages, testing creative, maybe seeing what a hook rate is on a video. So there's a lot of variables that we can adjust to see if we can get more of the metrics than the KPIs that we want. For other clients, lead generation, like what can we drive more leads? What's the lead quality? How much are we paying per lead? Are we willing to pay X amount per lead? And then how do we lower that to get people to meet the goal that the client has set forth for the cost per lead or whatever the cost per acquisition is? Or if they're starting net new and they have no baseline measures, it's like, what do we get right out of the gate? And then how do we incrementally reduce that or improve it? I have some other brands that our entire strategy is just engagement, video views, and traffic. So for traffic campaign, we know for certain platforms, like what's a good and healthy click-through rate? How do we get more people to click certain content, maybe which has different content? How do we make more engaging content? So for those types of campaigns or client accounts, those are the KPIs that we strive for.
Awesome. We have a client that is an e-commerce client, and they have an issue of knockoff brands. They're a direct-to-consumer brand. There's a lot of knockoff brands that also try to sell their knockoffs, and that's creating some issues with conversions. Do you have any recommendations on how we can go about fixing that? Obviously, contacting Meta hasn't been very helpful.
I'd be surprised if you got some actual help. Unfortunately, I wish it was different.
Yeah.
The only way that you can send them a cease and desist if they're really copying it to where it's infringing on any copyrights that you might have or any just IP. But other than that, the only control you really have is we have a client where somebody does that currently, but we have it as a pinned organic post on their Instagram and their Facebook and their other social channels, where it's, if you got this from anywhere other than here, the quality is going to be different. We can't guarantee that you're going to get the same customer service or whatever the product benefits are. The only thing you can do is control the messaging from your brand and just really emphasize that either you're the only one that sells this, that you're the only one who can back this product. And if there's a big price discrepancy between the knockoff and yours.
And there is.
Yeah, I imagine. So it's hard because there's so many brands. You look at Amazon, things that are being sold there, Temu.
Right.
And we're like, how do you compete with a brand with that much financial backing to it? The only thing you can say is just, through video, through imagery, through text, is just explain the higher quality and the investment that you're making in having this product, because you can stand behind it. If you don't mind me asking, like broadly, what kind of product is it? Blankets. Okay.
And beddings, yeah.
Maybe you could talk about the higher quality, how you might not get a rash.
And the difference is from $30 to $300, so it's quite a bit. And they're infringing their brand. So but the thing is, with the legal department, somebody else handles it, so we don't know where they are, what they're doing. But as a marketers, we have recommended to just run evergreen campaigns. Hey, we are the real Slim Shady here, and without an expectation of conversion, just straight out branding.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to see, what do you think about that strategy? Just run a campaign just for that, and without, obviously, if we get more sales out of it, that'd be great. But if we don't, do you think that would help?
Wait, so you said run a campaign for awareness?
Just run an awareness campaign. Yeah, informational. Say, this is who we are. If there's somebody else, this is happening, there's a lot of fraud happening. Do you think that would be helpful, or do you think that's just waste of ad dollars?
I wouldn't. I would save that for your email campaign. I would post it organically and pin it And then I also message that
But you wouldn't spend
once
ad
in a
dollars.
while in your email campaigns, just because you already have those people in there, they already know your brand, and you can just emphasize they're still on the fence of shopping with you. And then other than that, for ads, if you do put any budget on it, I'd say do a video. If you have a video that says this, have a short, concise video and run a video views campaign. So then, people digest and retain things better that they saw through a video. And that's a really inexpensive way. Even if you did $10 a day, like you'd still get more of that visibility and just see if you can target a warmer audience. Yeah, I would really speak to just like, it's going to be more durable, I imagine, compared to a $30 version. It's like, how many times are you going to wash this blanket or this sheet before it falls apart? And then you're like, I wasted my money and now it's going to go in a landfill.
Yeah.
And maybe you can talk to the environmental impact of that, like the durability.
That's a good point. Okay.
Maybe, one thing I like to do is take AI tools like ChatGPT, take customer testimonials or social comments. And for one of our clients, we've had people that wear their shoes for decades and like on their feet all day and the durability of it. And we were able to have AI pull, like, how many people talk about a certain benefit? And we noticed this many people talk about it. We take quotes off of it. We put that into the copy. So you're not like shoving in people's face, but you're really putting out there that this lasted for this person 5 years and it's still cozy and comfortable or whatever that might be. I think if you just lean into showcasing the benefits, I think that'll naturally speak to people that might want your product, but it's still hard with the economy that some people just really can't shell out $300 for a sheet or a blanket, and that just might not be realistic for them. But I think that's the best you can do is just put that messaging out there in strategic ways.
Got to improve your messaging. That's and creatives. Talking about creatives, I log into Facebook and I have a lot of relatives and friends overseas. So that's how I keep in touch with them, see what they're up to. I feel like that's still better than Instagram, because Instagram, you really see a bunch of pictures. Facebook, you can actually talk to them and see their statuses and stuff like that. And so I don't go there with the intent of buying. So for you to sell something to me, you got to be very crafty, right? It's, as opposed to if I go to searching for something, it's a lot more likely for me to buy something. So since you paid search background and now you're focusing on meta ads, obviously that's a huge difference, right? People don't go to Facebook to buy, but you still have to sell to them. So what are some tips you have on like getting those people that go to Facebook and Instagram to buy, even though their original intent of logging in was not to purchase anything?
People go to search with intent, where Facebook, not so much, but people do still see things from brands that they interact with across other channels. You can remarket in that way. But if you can only do one thing, is if it's for purchases, do a conversion campaign and use video ads. Static images still work really well, but video conveys things much quicker. And if you can captivate somebody in the video and get them to click through, we find that people will most often purchase that thing or at least add it to their cart. Another thing that you can do is that if you only have static images is show your product, but make sure that creatively the photographer emphasizes in the angle of the shot that this is the product. So say it's like shoes. You want to focus on the shoes because we've had some clients in the past where they show a lifestyle photo. And I was going to get to saying, use a lifestyle photo so that people could see, what does this thing look like on somebody? And people are like, oh, where do I get that sweater? I can't find it on your site. We're not selling sweaters. So make sure you're really visually showcasing the product you're selling. Showing smiling people also helps.
Yeah.
But if you do any non-lifestyle photography and it's just a product image, try to use a vibrant or bold color behind it, because if you think about most people use it in either like light or dark mode on their app or their desktop. What stands out the most? Don't make it blend in with the static backgrounds of the platform that you're advertising on. But there's little visual tricks you can do, but video works great. So make sure that your ad can show somebody what you're advertising visually, acoustically, and textually. So even if the video's on mute, that you have captions on it or some overlay text. So if you're putting a hook of, oh, this is the gift to buy somebody that's hard to shop for, that can make somebody stop and watch that video and be like, oh, what is this thing? So just make it intriguing, get them to stop to watch or read. And then usually that does a good job to get them to click through, and hopefully your landing page will do the rest of the work.
Yeah, and those are all really good tips. As far as a consumer, I can attest that the creative matters a lot. I actually recently bought something on Facebook, seeing a Facebook ads. It was helping me with editing this podcast. It was an AI tool, and if it was a banner, like a traditional in the imagery, I probably would have ignored it. But this video was like perfect. Like basically, it addressed my pain point, and I bought it like literally right away. And so creatives, videos, obviously nowadays, most people, even my mom, the older people tend to prefer video content over images. Too much information on the internet. People want to read less and consume video content. And one thing I've noticed, a lot of enterprise brands, they table that. I think the smaller companies in create video content a lot better and faster than more enterprise level clients. And that's one challenge we have. How do you, and I know that's obviously that's part of your job as a consultant, but like, how do you facilitate that? Does it, if you're a Facebook or Meta advertiser, do you also do video editing, or do you help them point them in the right direction? How do you go about that?
No, we're a small shop, so we don't do any creative in-house. I do have some creative partners. There's another agency I work with that just does creative. So more often than not, clients that I work with have a creative team in-house. So I do work very closely with them because they have a great idea, but it doesn't always execute right on the right channels or to accomplish the certain goals. I do creative strategies. I tell them, like, here's the video. Let's start with this. Let's try these hooks. Can you do this overlay text? Can you add some of this color? Maybe make it a little bit more natural and less polished. So I do give that feedback. I do give them notes for their photographer if they're working with somebody else, or the creative shop, but they're well versed in it because they work with a lot of paid socials. So it's easier to just communicate with them. Here's what I need. And I try to be as concise as possible and get detailed. And then I just see what's working, what's not. And then we just tweak it a little bit more. Hey, this is doing well, but we're noticing that maybe this has a really low hook rate, but it's converting really well. So what if we change the beginning at 3 seconds of the video and hooked more people in? Could we drive even more sales? So just small things like that, and just having that open line of communication between paid media and creatives, whether it's if I were to do it or someone else does, I think that's really important because they go so hand in hand.
That's awesome. And I have a good takeaway from this that we're going to implement at my agency, was that usually for the brand that I mentioned, the blanket brand, they usually just give us creatives and we plug and run it. And I've been telling them for quite some time that we need to get involved a little bit sooner in creative selection, and not just, hey, here's a creative, run it, these are the target audience. So that's really good takeaway for me to pass to the team. So I appreciate that.
If I can add one more thing about
please
that.
do, please do.
I know that some brands that have higher priced products, or like a really polished, refined brand, where I have some clients myself that are having a hard time. Like, they know they need to do user generated content or more natural content that they develop that they don't get from influencers or creators. But having that as part of your strategy works really well. And it makes it more approachable and relatable. And it's not just a brand being like, oh, we're the best. It's no, there's actually another person that might be a consumer saying that this product is great. So if you can encourage your team and say, here's the stats on other brands that we work with that are appealing to a higher priced product type of consumer, whether it's luxury or even if it's software. I know it's uncomfortable to break down that polished brand appearance, but let's test one video out and maybe we can meet somewhere in the middle where it is still on brand and polished, but like it brings in that creator element to where it does look a little bit more natural. And more often than not, we see that tends to perform really well. Or you can run a contest and be like, everybody submit something about how much you love this blanket. What's your favorite thing about this blanket? Like, maybe you can make a little spliced up video of showing some people talking about what they love most about it and adding some creative hook to it.
Gotcha. Very cool. We have an issue right now with that account attribution model. I feel like Meta takes too much credit, and
It sure does.
And how do you go about that? Do you change the settings, or do you actually take Meta's default attribution model as face value. Okay, we're going to take this and take credit for a full sale. How do you deal with those attribution differences? Whereas Google search has a different type of attribution model. How do you, if you're trying to have this omni-channel approach to marketing, how do you reduce the gap?
Excellent question. Attribution's tricky. There's nothing that's 100% accurate because, all the platforms and software don't speak to each other as seamlessly as we would like. So Meta does tend to over-report for itself. It does take into account view-throughs. It can change your attribution settings from the standard 7-day click 7-day click, 1-day view. But if you have something that's selling more quickly, you could get away with the 1 day. But if you have something that's more expensive or that there's a longer conversion funnel for, then you'll want to have that longer look back window. My way of doing it is that I look at what Meta's reporting and then I make optimizations based on that. But because they use their own data, but I use Google Analytics, I've used Triple Whale before in the past, where Google Analytics and other things like Triple Whale do tend to match up a little bit more closely. But the truth still lies in the middle. So I have the low range and I have the high range with Facebook. So I know it's in there, and usually it's in parallel. So if Facebook's saying like this one is driving like 10 sales, but Google's saying it's only 5, they're all usually matched up. It's just incremental. So I'll know the right things to adjust of, okay, this one is performing well, but how well? So anytime I report back on revenue, on return on ad spend for e-commerce clients, we rely on Google Analytics data or other analytics software for using it and use that as like our North Star. But we use in-platform data to optimize. But once in a while, I've had an issue where Facebook was saying, oh, there's a lot of sales from this ad. I could tell that it was all view-throughs. And it's like, do we want to run that and use our ad dollars? Or do we really want to just pause that? Because Google Analytics is saying, yeah, a lot of people are clicking on it. And Facebook's saying that they're converting, but Google Analytics is saying something different. Then we'll look a little bit deeper into that and make a decision if it's worth continuing to run, if it's maybe feeding people to that landing page, but maybe they're coming and purchasing something else on the site that attracts.
Gotcha. For lead generation, is it, from your experience, is it easier to just collect the leads on Facebook, or is it better to send it to landing page so that we have some additional data like the pixel fires for retargeting and stuff like that?
I have a really strong preference on this. I usually try to talk clients out of it, and I usually don't have to try very hard. But if you run an instant form ad, so where the lead gen form is in the ad unit, people don't have to leave Facebook's ecosystem. Even if you select in the form to optimize for higher quality leads over volume, it does an okay job. You're still going to get more leads at a lower cost, but I do notice that with all of our clients that we do lead gen with, that the quality is still lower. So what I often recommend is like, how about we just send people to the website? People are more interested. If they're going to leave Facebook in the middle of what they were doing to give their information, it needs to be worthwhile to them, meaning that they're already more interested. It's not just like a quick fill it in and keep scrolling. We'll get fewer leads at a slightly higher cost, but they'll be much more higher in quality. So for any time we have clients that have a smaller sales team where they're the point of contact that makes the sale for us, I only do that because I don't want to inundate their team with a bunch of low quality, non-responsive leads, and then they're not making money, and it's just not a wise use of our budget. So 99% of the time, I just say do leads from your website for a dedicated landing page where there's not a bunch of information other than here's what you get for giving us your information.
So it's quantity versus quality, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Very awesome. And as a search guy, I know if I want to do competitive analysis, I have SEMrush, Ahrefs, Spyful, a bunch of other tools that I can do that. Is there any tool out there for meta advertising if I want to see what my competitor is doing? What are some good tools out there if there are?
Yeah. So there's the Facebook ad library, which is public. You can search any and all brands and see if they're running ads. And then you can get information about, you can click through the landing page, see what their process is. It's great for inspiration, but also competitive research to see, here's what this is. There was another tool. I haven't used it in the last year. It was only available in the EU, but I think they're expanding to Meta for where I can send this to you after. I'm so sorry.
Is it not? It's not SimilarWeb, is it? No, okay.
But you can get data of their spend data. So you could think, so if you're running things in the EU, I'll send it over to you, where you can assume that maybe, okay, if they spend a lot of money on this ad, or if it's been running for a long date range, that it's probably a top performing ad for that brand. So then you can think, what if we do something similar, but one up them and change it to be on brand for you and maybe try some other thing that could save you time and resources, and just see if that works well for your brand and driving sales using that information and just assuming where I know assumptions aren't a strategy, but that could be a nice way to like fast track it to see if you can get some success.
Gotcha. Please let me know what that tool is. I can send it after. That's fine.
Okay.
Let's talk about AI. We use on paid, I think on SEO and paid search, we're using AI a lot. Generative AI and AI agents are a new thing. On meta ads, obviously, you can create some ad copies. Like, how do you use AI? Obviously, outside meta ads AI capability, how do you, as a marketer, use AI with your day-to-day running social ads in general?
Great question. Before I dive into that, I just looked it up. It's called adscan.ai.
Cool.
You can save ads on there. I'm not affiliated with them, but you can see spend data, but it's for Meta EU. I don't know if it expanded to the US yet. And it'll give you analysis scoring. So it'll tell you positive and negative things that the AI thinks about those ads, whether they're your own or someone else's.
Yeah, the reason I ask is because we have another client that spends way too much money in paid search, especially in the holidays. And I'm trying to get them to spend more money in paid social for branding and awareness and all that stuff. But they're very data oriented, very metric oriented. And I think that is one challenge I personally and my team we have had coming up with data. Like, it's a lot easier to do that competitive analysis for search. But I feel like social media in general is a closed system, and whatever data they choose to provide to you, like Meta, is all you get. So without and you have to do a lot of manual work.
Back to the AI question about tools that I use. I've been a paying customer of Jasper AI for the last 2 years. Love Jasper. Everything from helping me I like it when I'm getting stuck on prompts. So I write a prompt, and then there's a button in the chat feature that we can enhance the prompt. You can also do that in ChatGPT, but then you have to write an additional prompt to enhance that prompt. But it does a really great job, and I'll take that into other tools and I'll plug it in and get better outcomes from it. I use it to write copy, improve copy, increase the length, shorten it. If I'm having a hard time maybe making it more concise or making it fit within the certain specs, to even refining email summaries of reports where sometimes I tend to get a little wordy, but I really want to make it as concise and actionable for the client. So that helps me clean it up. I also use it for landing page copy. When you're talking about data, I came across this, it's called Julius.ai. I'm not a data analyst by trade, of course, but it's a huge part of our job. So I don't know what I don't know. So I know what I'm looking for. I've been doing this long enough to where I'm really great at that aspect of my job. But I found that Julius, I can create and import data sets there. It has some canned reports where like, I don't really know what I want to look at. And sometimes I just put it in there to see what insights does it have for me that maybe I didn't see in the way that my report is configured. So it has.
Is it this one? Sorry, because I've been looking for a tool just like this for a while. I'm using ChatGPT. A lot of copy pasting going on. I want to avoid it.
Yeah, this is fantastic. So I can import it, and it'll, something weird happened in an account. Say for instance, like there was a huge drop in sales. I'm like, okay, is that a tracking issue? I can look at that separately. But what happened in this account? And I'll put it in there, and it'll analyze it for me. And then it'll give me recommendations of 5 other routes I can take. It says, do you want to look at the correlation between this and this? Do you want to see when the fluctuations were? And then within seconds, it'll give me graphs for visuals, and I can quickly see, October 7th, there was a drop, and then it rebounded here where I don't get that visual necessarily in, say, Facebook's ads manager. It'll find fun facts about my data. So sometimes I use that, and it inspires me to do something different in the account, or I'll relay that to the client and say, hey, we might want to integrate this in our holistic marketing strategy because this is really interesting, and whatever that might be. So I really fall in love with that tool. It speeds up my reporting process, and I've been more efficient and effective because I have more information now where I don't have to spend hours trying to make custom reports where that just tells me really quick things if I'm putting a huge data set in, which is really nice for end of month reporting.
This is awesome. I'm glad you told me about this tool because that's something that I wanted to solve for 2025. I was like, you know what? The way we do it right now is we import our data into using, I think, Supermetrics into Google Sheets. And then in Google Sheets, we're using ChatGPT prompts to analyze data. And I'm like, okay, how do I improve this? And I even thought about creating my own tool, but I don't want to go the SaaS route. It's way too expensive. And running an agency, I don't have any time. Anyways, I'm gonna give this a try. And this is as good as you say it is. I owe you lunch. I'll send you a Postmate, because it would solve a lot of headache for us. We pride ourselves to being more very data oriented. I've done SEO since early 2000s, and I transitioned from programmer into SEO, but I still like to back up my claim with data. I never say this is what you have to do because I say it, because I have a lot of experience. I like to back it up with data. And even when I'm questioned, why did our ranking drop, or why did our traffic, or did our Google Ads ROAS drop? Even though I know what it is, I like to tell a story, and storytelling has been very difficult sometimes. So if you can automate some of this to save time and reduce headaches, so that's really cool. How do you find your ideal customers using meta ads? And I think, and for targeting strategies, earlier you said you're relying more on AI these days, but are you still, as a marketer, obviously you have your own custom lists that you're getting from your CRM or whatnot, uploading to Meta. What's the best way to identify the right audience and get them engaged?
There's a lot of ways to still do that, but there are some that perform better than others. Creating custom audiences, whether it's your newsletter or your lead list, those can still perform well, but with the caveat of using Advantage Plus audiences. So for that, Meta's AI does the heavy lifting for you in finding the right people. So you just tell it like you do, here's the campaign and the ad set goal, what we're optimizing for. And with this option, I've done rigorous testing because you can add a suggested audience. So technically it targets broadly, and you just here system, you just find the right people that are going to accomplish this goal that I set for it. I tested across all of our accounts without a suggestion, and it did pretty well. But by adding a suggestion, which also makes sense in theory, that you're giving the machine some data to go off of as a little hint of, you could do your custom audiences like your leads or your newsletter subscribers. You could do website visitors, but what I've learned is first party data works the best because Meta can't match everybody with the pixel, the privacy changes, everything like that. Like there's gaps in the data. So if you do Facebook post and ad engagers over the last 180 days or whatever you want to do, and the equivalent for Instagram post and ad engagers, because even if you want website visitors, Facebook defines an engagement as also a click. So even if you are getting somebody that you can't track, hypothetically, and I think through all the testing I've done, we've captured those people to retarget them. So we're giving Facebook this warmer group of people. It hits them first and then branches out. So are you familiar with lookalike audiences?
I am, yes.
Okay, so it works like a hybrid of that. So you're retargeting and also doing prospecting in one campaign, and it does a great job. You can do a customer cap to where you're not reaching mostly warm people or existing customers, but if you do not set that limit, you might spend 5 to 30% of your budget reaching existing customers. So that works really well. Lookalikes on their own, though, they have depreciated tremendously over the last year. You can still run them. They're still available and you're welcome to, see if it works for you. Like you said, don't take my word for it, try it out. And then there's still interest targeting. So say you don't want to go broad. I still recommend, even if you're a small brand, to go a little bit broader, just because it has more people to determine if that's the person that's going to convert, and you'll pay less for it, because if you're targeting a smaller group of people, there's more demand. So you might be paying more. You can still group interest together. So say maybe you're trying to reach like a tech SaaS audience, maybe, people that work in that space or work for a particular company or have a certain job title. You can still do that and it can still be effective. I have one account where that does really still historically, and we haven't touched it until the data says otherwise. So long story long, there's a lot of options for targeting, but the way that the platform shifted is to do broader targeting and allow the system to do what it is doing best right now, and finding the people that are the most likely to convert.
What do you use for reporting? Do you just use the platform default reporting, Meta's default reporting, or do you use Looker Studio or any other? for your client?
Yeah. So for some clients that have super metrics, and as you
Yeah.
said, we do that
Right.
importation into Google Sheet, and then just some Looker Studio just to have more visuals. But for some other ones that we consult on or smaller brands, we just pull from Facebook and have our own custom report in Google Docs. And
Gotcha.
that way I have all the columns that I need and that are important for the client, but also for myself to see like, how are we doing week over week? Are we doing month over month or quarterly, depending on the client? But I take what I want from the platform and I just put it together in a view that gives me the information that I need to be able to analyze it and determine the next steps.
And in 2025, what are some of the things that you'll be doing differently? What are some trends and strategies that you will do as a senior meta marketer, but also you recommend other marketers to pay attention to?
Great. As soon as you started saying that question, I thought about it like as a business owner, like I've been making a lot of changes to my business. But from an advertising standpoint, if you haven't done so yet, I think it's just an extension of last year where consolidate your campaigns, consolidate your ad sets, really lean into AI tools. I really went hard about a year and a half ago and just, I know AI has been for a long time, but it really took off in the last year or two. So I'm just becoming more proficient in exploring more tools and incorporating them into my own toolbox because I am a small shop. I need to be efficient, but I also want to be effective and not sacrifice results for my clients. But I also would like to grow my business in other ways that I can take on more clients because I'll have some more time available and use my brain for more strategy rather than the day-to-day of just media buying. That's a really big one. And just trust the system more, which I feel so weird to say because I always took it with a grain of
Because
salt.
in the past, we said different stuff, right? In the past,
Yeah.
I was like, don't trust the system, go manual CPC. Now I'm like, no, don't do manual CPC. Let it learn.
Yeah, there's so many things where that works well in theory, but doesn't work in execution anymore. And that's one of those things. And same thing for Facebook, some other channels, because Facebook's kind of the North Star and then every other platform that like with Google as well. Yeah, lean into AI. It's not going to take your job. It's going to evolve your job. So become proficient in it and just see how you can be better at your job and have a little bit more breathing room.
Yeah, I think AI is going to enable us to be less technical and more like it's less IQ, more EQ, tell better stories, communicate strategies better, tell better stories. I enjoy it on search. Like I don't have to, I used to spend a lot of time creating like single keyword ad groups. That was just very time consuming. And it was just like, and now I just, by intent, I let it optimize. I just add negatives and I monitor it. I don't spend as much time. It's great. Now I can focus on strategy and omnichannel, which I think you mentioned media buying. How do you, as a media buyer that focuses only on meta and social, how do you collaborate with other media buyers, like to have that omnichannel presence?
I usually, when my clients will come to me and ask me for recommendations, and I live for connecting people, and I have a solid group of people that I know have been working well over the years. So if they need those other components, I bring them in, introduce them, and more often than not, they sign on, but through their own arrangements. Just keeping an open line of communication and having that we're here to help each other. And when you win, I win, and vice versa, because consumers are buying faster, but still not like I saw this once and I'm going to buy it unless it's like a $5 keychain or something that you really can't keep scrolling past. But more often than not, I partner up with other agencies that provide complementary services. So whether it's SEO, design, web dev, PPC, like paid search, they don't necessarily do what I do, or they often have greener staff. So they'll bring me in as a consultant in those instances, and I'll just oversee it because if they do offer paid social as well, I'll be like the senior person on the team as an extension of their team. But if they don't have somebody, then I manage the account and we just work together collaboratively. And that's how I get a lot of my business.
That's awesome. So yeah, that's what I was gonna ask you next. Like, how do you get your business? What do you maybe you can elaborate a little bit more about your business since you're running out of time. Maybe you can tell more about where people can find you and your website and all that stuff.
Yeah, you can find me on podcasts. So podcasts really help with my business. I speak at conferences. I stay active on social, and I just let people know, here's my name and my company and what I'm good at. I'm proud to say in my entire career, I've never been fired by clients. So knock on wood, that continues.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I just put it out there. I'm like, here's what I'm good at. And if you need this help, let's talk. And I'm word of mouth at this point and just attending and speaking at conferences. and just keeping relationships nurtured and making new ones. And you can find me at advertise.com or Akvile DeFazio on most social channels.
Cool. I can't wait to see you at the next conference. What's the next conference you're speaking at? Is there one coming? What's the planning?
I'm doing one in San Diego, but it's for private advertising membership group.
Yeah,
It's going to be in Encinitas at the end. We'll see. The year has just begun. What about you?
yeah, for sure. I am going as a attendee, as a sponsor to B2B Marketing Exchange, because we do 50% of our business is B2B, and B2B marketing is like very collaborative. We don't do everything B2B, but we do some of it. So we're going to that one. We do a lot of e-commerce. I'm going to an e-commerce conference in March in LA. I'm going to that as an attendee and as a sponsor. We actually have a booth there. I'm not a public speaker, so I don't speak at events. I think podcasting is more than challenging enough for me, but I've done some smaller sessions, but I'm hoping to go to a couple of SEO conferences as well, just to see I usually go to SEO conferences to see friends and former colleagues and get away from the office. And it was good to see you in San Diego at Brighton SEO and Hero conference, by the way. I didn't get a chance to come and say hi. It was that event was huge. It was bigger than I thought.
Yeah.
I was like,
It was a lot bigger than I thought. I was like,
there's a lot of people here. Yeah, well, that was a good experience. But I appreciate your time. Thank you I know your time is valuable. Thank you for coming to our podcast. You have yourself a great day.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.